everybody. Welcome Shane, Crystal, hey, Pamilo. You guys got your passport on the way over? I'll tell everybody. The title of my lesson this morning is The Shape of the Heart. You know, sometimes I feel like my sermons are a bit long, and the problem is, once I get going, I'm too lazy to stop. So bear with me. I know the heart in the Bible. In Greek it's cardia, and it occurs around 1,000 times in the Bible. A lot, right? They use it a lot. It's the most common anthropological term used in scriptures. And it denotes the person's center for both physical and emotional, intellectual, moral activities. Now, up until recently, it was thought that the brain controlled the heart. But that's not so. They found out recently, modern technology, found that there are 40,000 more receptors that go from the heart to the brain than from the brain to the heart. All they would have had to do, though, rather than do all that science technology stuff, is to read Proverbs 4:23. The Bible says, above all else, guard your heart, because it is the wellspring of life. All life flows from the heart. The heart controls the brain, as a matter of fact. Our desires and our motives, they're all generated in our heart. Our feelings and our emotions, they come from our heart, not from our intellect, not from our brain. Man looks at the outward appearance, Solomon said, but the Lord looks at the heart. The king's heart is unsearchable to humans, the Bible says. But the Lord searches all our hearts and reward us according to our conduct. In the time of judgment, God will expose the hidden motives in our hearts that man can't even see. Jesus says that the secrets of the heart are betrayed by what comes out of our mouth. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks, the Bible says. And a wise man's heart guides what he says. But Solomon says in the Bible. Now, the heart is mysterious. It's a mysterious thing. You know, it's kind of a tricky thing. And in Jeremiah 17:9 it says that it's deceitful. Above all things, it's deceitful. And it's beyond cure. Who could even understand it? So for us as Christians, we have to guard our heart, but don't trust our heart. Because our feelings, our emotions, desires, they can betray us, they can lead us astray. We don't go by our feelings and our emotions. We're not guided by them. But we definitely want our heart to be in the right shape, so that we'll have good desires, godly emotions, and respond in a righteous way to the situations that are around us. Right? Our heart is very important to God. It's very important to God. A good friend of mine, Jason Dimitri, I recently preached a lesson. He said there is a war raging right now for the hearts of men and women. It's a war between Satan and a war between God. Before our hearts. The cards for us are stacked against us in Satan's favor. Being that our hearts, God only accepts 100% of our heart. And Satan knows that all he needs is part of our hearts to win all of our hearts. So we've got to be able to give all of our heart to God. Because Satan just gets a little bit of it, God won't accept our heart. So we got to make sure it's in good shape, right? So that's the goal of today, is to make sure our hearts are in good shape for God. Point number 1, man's wicked, deformed heart. We'll be reading in Genesis chapter 6. And, you know, when Jesus was here, his disciples asked him, hey, Jesus, when is the end going to come? You know, what's going to happen when the end of the world comes? Because they were like walking out of the temple and they were pointing out to Jesus all these beautiful architecture of the temple. And Jesus says, well, the temple's all going to get destroyed. And they're like, oh man, when is this going to happen? And everybody wants to know, right, when is the end going to come? And Jesus actually explains to them about wars and rumors of wars and different natural disasters and false prophets and false Jesuses that are going to come and make their appearance. And they said then the end will come. But before that, it's going to be like the days of Noah. He said, it's going to be at the end. You'll know it's near the end when it's like the days of Noah. So what are the days of Noah like? That's what we're going to find out right now. In Genesis chapter 6, what was it like in the days of Noah? This is like, I don't know, so around 10,000 years ago. Maybe not quite 10,000, but 8,000, 9,000. A long time ago. What was it like back then? It Is it like it is today? Let's see if we can find some similarities. Yeah?
Come on, bro.
Genesis chapter 6 and verse 5. The Bible says, "The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time." Oh, God said only evil all the time. Everything about their hearts is jacked up. They're wicked, deformed, misshapen hearts. Wow. And so, of course, we know from reading the Bible here in Genesis chapter 4, Cain murders Abel. One of the main sins back then was violence, right? And you know, it's kind of interesting, how did they get there, right? Well, the first sin, the original sin, of course we know, is Adam and Eve disobeying God and eating the forbidden fruit. That would be the first sin. That was it, right? What was the second sin? Well, them not repenting of that, them blaming everybody else for it, including God and devil and each other, and that would be the second sin, blaming everybody else. What did that lead to? It led to murder. Whenever we don't deal with our sin, it leads to worse sin. There's an important lesson we learned there. Deal with your sin. Violence, though, was a prevalent sin back in the day. What else was prevalent back then? Let's read on in chapter 6 and verse 1. "When men began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them that they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children with them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." So the Bible says the next sin that was very prevalent with violence and disobedience to God was sexual sin. Sexual immorality was very prevalent back then. Now there's a lot of different opinions on what exactly he's talking about here with these sons of God and daughters of men, and these heroes and these Nephilim, right? So basically, most likely what was happening is there were either some demons that made themselves like men, like humans, kind of, and they were sleeping with the women, and they were producing a race called Nephilim. They were like giants, right? That's most likely what was happening here, but we're not quite sure. It could have been another theory is that they were demon-possessed people, and they were messing around with the women as well. But basically what was happening is they were corrupting the gene pool of God. God had created Adam and Eve in his image, and Satan had come in, and he was trying to corrupt that gene pool and make it all jacked up. And so most likely it was some kind of demonic thing going on here. But we know for certain that it was sexual immorality, and the sin of it was causing God to be upset with these people back then, because Satan was messing things up, right? Now, if you want to know what it was like in the days of Noah, all you have to do is turn on the news today. You look at the news today, and that's what you're going to see: violence and sexual immorality. You know, there's a lot of jokes start off, right? A guy walks into a bar, and the bartender says, da-da-da-da-da. It's a great joke, right? Well, this story ain't no joke. A guy walks into a bar in California last week with a pistol, and for no reason executes 12 people in the bar. He shoots them for no reason. No good reason. No, they don't even know why he did it. He just thought he was a combat veteran. Maybe he had PTSD, they're saying a mental illness, or maybe somebody was mad at somebody. Nobody really knows what happened, but he murders 12 people, and then he takes his own life. I see that as a wicked perversion of Satan when Jesus' 12 apostles plus a suicide. It's a perversion of Satan, kind of throwing it in the face of God and Christianity. What a terrible, violent thing to do. I read another story recently, and before I read the story about this young girl in Albuquerque, New Mexico, it said, for mature audiences only, there's graphic content. Beware if you're going to read this story. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I want to know what this story is talking about. It's like warning me before I even read it. And I can't go into detail in front of this church because of how bad that story was. Wow. And I've seen some stuff in my life, and I've gone through some things, you know. And I have a switch in my head that in the past, before I was a Christian, I've done some bad things, and I would turn it off. Turn off my emotion, turn off my conscience, in a sense, so I could commit these things, right, that I would do. And just to be sure, it's nothing like crazy illegal or I got a like rape or nothing like that, or molesting kids. But in this case, that's exactly what happened to this teenage girl. And I can say that as I was reading this story, it hurt me. It damaged me. I've been having trouble sleeping every night since I read this story. It caused me grief and pain reading what happened to this innocent 10-year-old girl in Victoria, where even her mother was involved, covering her mouth while her boyfriend did stuff to her. And the cousin watched along and joined in as well. And then they murdered her. And I read this story, and I just couldn't. I was writing my sermon, and I was thinking about it, and reading the story, and I just had to stop and cry. It's so terrible, the things that people do to each other. A mother is supposed to protect her children. And this is what man does to each other. This is what we do to each other. How do you think God feels about that? It's terrible. This is what happens though, when men and women follow their heart rather than guard their heart. The heart comes out wicked, misshapen, deformed. God didn't create us to do such things. He didn't create us to do such things. This is what happens when people make their own morality rather than follow the morals of the Bible. This is what happens when we don't shove our beliefs down people's throats. That's what happens.
Yeah, come on, bro.
America needs to wake up, because if we don't shove our beliefs down people's throats, Satan will. America took the Bible and prayer out of school, but they left it on the money. They left "In God We Trust" on the money, but he said you can't talk about it in school. We had a speaking engagement at the high school over here, but I read my Bible, they said we can't come back anymore and read the Bible there. We teach kids to hate the Bible. We teach kids to fear the Bible. And this is what we end up with. This is what happens. America needs to wake up. 18,000 people per year are murdered in America. That's 50 per day.
Wow.
13,000 of those murders were with a gun, on average. You guys think guns are bad? Well, texting and driving is not good either. 9 people every day get killed because someone's texting and driving or distracted driving. 3,300 a year by accident, you know. There's on purpose and there's on accident. We're getting killed. 3,000 plus abortions every single day in America. That's over 1 million kids a year. They try to hide the statistics. This is just an estimate. They're trying to keep it a secret. Nobody knows for sure how many babies are murdered every year, but it's around 1 million. 20,000 children will be abused today in the world. Today, while we're in church. 1,000 children will be sexually assaulted today while we're in church. Who here comes from a broken home with divorced parents? 2,400 people are going to get divorced today. All the pain, the agony, and the suffering that you went through when your parents got divorced or when you went through a divorce. 2,400 people are going to experience that this day. This day. 40,000 children will be abandoned today. Today, 3,000 people will take their own life. What's the world's solution to this? What's the worldly solution to this? Well, let's legislate morality. We'll have the politicians make more laws. Thousands upon thousands of laws they make to prevent stuff like this, right? In Singapore, they got the death penalty. If you have some drugs on you, they'll kill you. So they don't have too much drugs in Singapore, but they still do have some drugs. Well, they'll ban the guns, they'll ban abortions, they'll ban gay marriages, but the reality is you cannot legislate morality. It just won't work. The politicians that we elect to office are the most immoral of us all. They're murderers and they're sexually immoral. That's what they do. God issued a book of laws in the Old Testament. Tons and tons of laws. God's a perfect lawgiver and the laws didn't work. Men's hearts heart, we're still corrupt. Legislation of morality doesn't work. You can argue about it on social media, right? It's easy to point out the problems, and it's easy to point the finger of blame to this group or that group, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some people say it's mental issues, it's a mental health issue, all this bad stuff that happens. Other people say it's the President Trump's fault, he's so corrupt, it's all his fault. No, blame the Russians even. It's the Russians, them sneaky Russians. Sneaky Russians, they got in on it. That's why we have all these problems in society, because of Trump and the Russians. Got that hate speech going on both sides, right?
Yeah.
You know, white nationalists, they'll say, it's the immigrants' fault. It's the immigrants' fault. Then you got white liberal guilt on the other side. It produces people like Christian Bale saying that there should be no white people in any position of authority.
Wow.
That's what he said. That white liberal guilt's deep with that one.
That's crazy.
Then you got Sinead O'Connor. She says, I'm going to become a Muslim, and I don't ever want to talk to or see or be around any white people ever again. That's what white liberal guilt produces. It's a heart condition, not a skin condition. Come on! Kidding me?
Yeah. Come on, bro. Come on.
We as Christians need to guard our hearts, and we need to protect it from this nonsense going on around us today. Because all this nastiness, it impacts God in a very real way, I can tell you. We'll read on. Second point, God's grieving a pure heart. Genesis chapter 6 and verse 7. The Bible says, so the Lord said, I will wipe mankind whom I have created from the face of the earth, men and animals and creatures that move along the ground and birds of the air, for I am grieved that I have made them. This is God's solution at this time to this specific problem of all the sin because of man's inclination of evil in his heart all the time. Someone would just kill everybody. He did, of course, save Noah and 8 of the people and all the animals, right? Well, 2 of every animal kind. Now imagine God, who has never committed any sin or any crime. He didn't create sin. He did not create humans to commit sin. But God's, of course, love. He didn't create a bunch of robots that forced them to love Him. He gave us a beautiful gift of grace and free will, and we squandered it, corrupted the gene pool with the demons, or the demon-possessed. So God had to wipe it out. He had to clean the gene pool out and just have a handful of righteous people left. Imagine God, though, who hasn't committed or done any of those things. You who are sinful in the church, fallen men and women, we all have sin in our life. None of us are perfect.
Yeah.
Did that hurt you when I talked about what happened to Victoria?
Yeah.
It hurts. How do you think it makes God feel, though?
Wow.
Who's never done anything wrong? He loves us as humans so much that He allows us even to do stuff like that.
Wow.
And I personally can't wait to get to heaven to give that little girl a hug.
Yeah.
Because that's where she is right now.
Yeah.
But it hurts to see it happen, to even read about it. I don't even know these people.
Yeah.
And I'm ticked off.
Yeah.
And I'm hurt. But God feels so much more in His heart.
Yeah.
So much so that He had to kill everyone on the planet because of it. That's how much it hurts Him. You know, I've watched people die as a lifeguard. I've helped people that have been in massive car accidents, and I've seen what it looks like when someone dies due to an accident. I've never witnessed any murders or anything like that, but I've seen people die due to an accident. And I've seen the cold gray eyes, you know, there's no life in them. I've had blood on my hands, covered in other person's blood, trying to save them. And I can tell you right now, it hurt me so much. It hurt so I would have nightmares. I would go into shock. I remember saying, I remember one time when a young lady got hit by a car and was killed, and my hands, I had blood all over me, and I was trying to save her. And I remember afterwards when they put her in the ambulance, body parts, it was bad, and I remember saying, how could this happen to me? I remember saying that out loud. I was in shock. And because the reason why I thought back to why did this happen to me, and I'm not even thinking about that lady and her family and the person who accidentally hit her. He wasn't drunk or on drugs or even speeding. He just accidentally hit a lady. And I remember thinking back on it later because it hurt me. I'm asking, why did this happen to me? Because it was painful. And I think about God, whether people die by accident before their time, or whether people are killed by someone else, I just found out I lost a good friend of mine that I grew up with to a surfing accident. He was out surfing with his family and having fun. He has children. He left me in that class. And I think how bad that hurts me, and I think about God. And how bad these things hurt him. He feels so much more than we do. How do you think God feels when one of his children hurts another one of his children? That's us, because we're his children. How do you think that makes him feel when we are critical of each other? How do you think it makes him feel when we're pointing our fingers at each other and resentful towards one another? How do you think that makes God feel? How do you think God feels when a Christian husband is not loving his wife sacrificially like Jesus loved the church? Because I've been guilty of that with my wife. How do you think God feels when a Christian wife is not submissive to her husband like she is to Jesus? Because that's what the Bible teaches us to be, as husbands and wives. How do you think it makes God feel? How do you think he feels when we lust after each other? Because that's what we do as humans, right? Well, let's ask him. Turn to Matthew chapter 5. We'll see how God feels about this stuff. Matthew chapter 5, verse 21. You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not murder. And anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. Anyone who says to his brother, Raka, which means you fool, is answerable to the Sanhedrin. But anyone who says you fool will be in the dangers of the fire of hell. Basically, if you're calling someone an idiot or a fool, is bad, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there for the altar. First go and be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary, who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still with him on the way, or he may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. I tell you the truth, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. You have heard that it was said, do not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. This is how God feels about sin, being that Jesus is God in the flesh. Like, we forgot how God feels about sin when he wiped out everybody, so God sends Jesus to remind us face to face. This is how he views the sin that we do. Violence and sexual sins of the heart are just as painful and just as serious to God as actually doing those things. Is actually doing them in our hearts. The inclinations of man's heart, wickedness all the time. That's scary. God feels very strongly about our sins. Very strongly about them. Back in Genesis, the sins of man hurt him so much that they rid the world of the corrupted gene pool and start all over again. God always has a solution. God always has a plan. From day one, he had a plan. Noah and his family, he started over with them. Gave them the law of Moses, legislated the morality for them. Human hearts, unfortunately, were not cured. They're beyond cure. So God gave us Jesus as a solution.
Yeah.
And we killed him, too, with our sin. With the lust of our hearts. With the anger and the unforgiveness and the resentment of our brothers and sisters. With the sin against Victoria. With the sin against those 12 innocent people that did not deserve to die in that war. And so many more. 3,000 suicides. Jesus came for that. That's why he came. Jesus conquered death, though, when we killed him. He overcame it. overcame it. That was God's plan.
Yeah.
Jesus said in John 16:33, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Jesus overcame the world. He had compassion on the world. He had compassion on us even in our sin. He viewed us, people. If you were to walk around Kona today, he would say, they're like sheep without a shepherd, helpless and harassed. Even though in Kona there are kids getting molested, people doing drugs, even though that's what Jesus would say about everyone. He would say that. He would have compassion on not just our church, not just our kids, but everyone here.
Yeah.
He would have compassion. He would view us as harassed and helpless. Jesus' solution, the reason why he came was to die for our sins, and then what? Send the disciples. He says, go and make disciples. I overcame, now you can overcome.
That's right.
That was his solution. That's us today.
Yeah.
To go and make disciples of all nations. That's
Amen.
why we beg for money on the side of the road. That's why we sell steak plates.
Amen.
So we can go to all the places in the world that need Jesus.
Yeah.
And is there any place in the world that does not need Jesus? No. Everyone needs Jesus.
Yeah.
We're all harassed and helpless everywhere.
Yeah.
Soon, God's going to destroy the earth again. For the same reasons as he did the days of Noah. With a different method. The 2 Peter 3:10, but the day of the Lord will come like a thief. The heavens will disappear with a roar. The elements will be destroyed by fire. And the earth and everything in it will be laid bare. That's what's going to happen in the end. I watched the video right now. There's some wildfires in California.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the videos and pictures. It's crazy what's happening there. They're just insane. I showed it to Shane and Crystal last night, and my wife and my kids as well. This lady, like over 70,000 acres has been burned. So far, there's been a handful of people got trapped in their cars trying to escape. They didn't even know there was a fire until their house was on fire. And they were trying to escape these flames. And so this lady was in her car. She's driving and there's a cell phone filming it. And she's in there with her family. And she's trying to escape the fire. And you can hear her praying. She's like, her voice is shaking. And you can look at the video and there's this flame, like big tall trees on fire on both sides of the road. You look at this narrow road and all you see is smoke and a red glow from these flames, and her voice is quivering. And she's praying, Father, please keep us safe, Heavenly Father. She's begging God, and her voice shakes. She's trying to be strong for her children. Father, give my son strength. Thank you for giving him strength to be brave right now. And she's driving through there, and I'm just like, oh no, this looks bad. And then all of a sudden, the flames part, and the smoke clears, and she's got blue skies ahead of her. She escapes the flame, and God answers her prayers. Because God wants to save all of us from the flames that are to come. Everything is going to get burned up. Scheduled to burn anyway, STBA. Don't forget that acronym. Everything is going to burn. All our stuff, our houses, our skin sacks, this whole world is going to burn. It's scheduled for destruction at some point. But we've got to understand something. That God's solution for us to escape the eternal flames is still real today. He makes his promises to us. My challenge is to stop torturing God's heart. And love each other from the heart. Don't lust. Don't be resentful. Love each other. God wants to save all his kids from that fire even more than that mom would save her kids from the fire. God shows us and illustrates stuff like this to us so that we can have compassion on people that are about to get burned up. He also shows stuff as a warning. California's got some wildfires right now. You know where most of the murders are in this country? California, by far.
Really?
The sexual morality, the porn industry is biggest. That's where it's centered in California. You better watch out. God gonna drop that San Andreas fault right into the ocean. Baptize that whole state. And then they're gonna swamp us in a tidal wave. Better watch out. God warns us, and God gives us his promises as well. Point number 3, Sacrifice your heart to God. Back in Genesis chapter 8. So God destroyed the world with water. He sank everything and everyone except Noah, his 8 family members. They come out of dry land. Beautiful, glorious sun. They walk down the ramp and let all the animals out. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's incredible. Release the animals, you know. And they get out there, and there's a rainbow. God's covenant promise. They'll never destroy the world by water again. Like this, in this way. Amazing. First thing Noah does.
Come on.
Genesis chapter 8, verse 20. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, never again will I curse the ground because of man. Even though every inclination of his heart is evil from childhood, and never again will I destroy all the living creatures as I have done, as long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, be fruitful, increase in number, and fill the earth. Oh, what an incredible sight that must have been. Now these people, they came off the ark, and the first thing that they do is make a sacrifice to God, and it was pleasing to him. In his heart, he made a promise to never do it again like this. Never, ever, ever again to destroy the entire planet with water like that. He was fired up. God knew, though, that even though he started over with Noah and his family, that their hearts were not cured, though. That their inclination of their hearts would remain to be evil, but he'd still love us anyway. He still had a solution, right? He still had a solution for our uncured, disformed hearts that grieve even God's own heart. He still had a love for us. He still had compassion for us, like Jesus did, even though we were in sin. Let's turn to 1 Peter chapter 3 for us today.
Okay.
1 Peter chapter 3, verse 18. The Bible says, for Christ died for sins once for all, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. He was put to death in the body, but made alive by the Spirit, through whom also he went and preached to the spirits in prison, who disobeyed long ago when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. In it, only a few people in Noah were saved through water. And this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also. Not the removal of dirt from the body, but the pledge of a good conscience towards God. It saves you by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand with angels, authorities, and powers in submission to him. This is a pretty amazing passage. Look, a pretty cool nugget in here. It says that Jesus died for us. And while he was dead, it says he went and preached to these spirits in prison, because Jesus was underground for 3 days. What was he doing? Well, it says it here. He was speaking to the spirits in prison that disobeyed long ago. These demons, or these demon-possessed spirits, were in chains, locked up, because they disobeyed God. God went to go flaunt it in their face, in a sense. He's like, I conquered death. Yeah. You guys are in chains for a reason. Your plan failed, Satan. Yeah. Your plan to corrupt the gene pool failed. And I'm here to prove it. I came from the gene pool of Adam and Eve, from Noah and his family, from the line of David, and here I am. Imperfect people. I came from that gene pool, and I conquered death and sin. I proved that a man can do it. And we can do it too today. We, in the same way as Noah and his family, God cleansed the earth with water. He washed the sin away with water. Today, when we get baptized as a repentant disciple living a faithful life, we wash the sins away in the same way. The water cleanses us of our sin. God waited patiently, it says, for people long ago to repent. God commanded Noah to build an ark. It says, then God says man's days will be 120 years. A lot of people think, well, God limits man's lifespan of 120 years. Actually, there's going to be 120 more years from now until I destroy the earth. what he's actually talking about here. God actually destroyed the earth around 120 years after he told him to build the ark.
Wow.
Pretty amazing. Moses building the ark, or Noah building the ark, preacher of righteousness where he later was trying to save more people, I'm sure, because he was a preacher of righteousness, right? He waits patiently for us today. Jesus' whole purpose for coming was to send us out as preachers of righteousness as well. 2 Peter 2:5 says, Noah was a preacher of righteousness. That's God's solution. Jesus' solution is to send out preachers of righteousness. That's Jesus' whole purpose for coming. To save us from sin, to teach people how to preach righteousness.
Right.
People today, they're desperate to follow someone.
Yeah.
That's why they elect these wacky politicians into office. And some of these people are crazy. And I'm not talking about, one side or the other. Both sides is guilty of some crazy wackiness. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But people are desperate to follow someone.
Yeah.
We need to be preachers of righteousness so
Yeah.
people can follow us with a real solution
Yeah.
to the problems that are facing our society today.
Yeah.
We need to be those preachers of righteousness. What did Noah do? As soon as they came off the ark, according to the Bible. It says he made a pleasing sacrifice to God. God wants our sacrifice today as well.
Yeah.
But what does God want from us? What kind of sacrifice? Is it money? Is it our time? Is it our good looks? Our wisdom? Our knowledge? Is that what God wants from us? Let's ask Him. Let's ask God, right? What does God really want from fallen man and woman? John chapter 21. Because Jesus is God walking the earth. We'll ask Him. Now, Jesus had his guys, Peter and the gang, right? And he spent 3 years with them, told them exactly what was going to happen. They're going to arrest me, they're going to kill me, and I'm going to come back. And they're like, you must be talking about something else. And then finally, right before he got arrested, he says, I'm going to get arrested, like really soon. And they're like, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to come with you even if you die. Jesus is like, no, you won't. He's like, yes, I will. They argue back and forth, right? You can imagine this, arguing back and forth, and even Peter tries to rebuke him. This is a bad man. I want to correct you, Jesus. And Jesus rebukes him. Gets behind me, Satan. Then, of course, Jesus gets arrested. And these guys, proving them to be the cowards that they are, ran off into the night. And Jesus gets resurrected, just like he said he was. What these guys do? They went fishing. Of all this stuff that's going on, the best plan they can come up with is to go fishing. So Jesus is like, whatever, grabs them, like this barbecue up on the beach, and he calls them in. Pick it up here, feeds them. John 21, verse 15. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these? More than these fish, more than these guys, more than everything? Yes, Lord, he said, you know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my lambs. Again, Jesus asked Simon, son of John, do you truly love me? He answered, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said, take care of my sheep. The third time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. It was interesting in the original text, he had asked him, there's different words in the Greek for love. So the first time he'd asked him, do you love me like a friend? But the third time he asked him a different, called agape love, like a deep, intimate love. Not like a lustful love or anything like that, but a deep, like a brotherly love. The third time he asked him agape, do you really love me? Like flesh and blood, like we're brothers. Do you really love me like that? Says Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him that way. It hurt his feelings, yeah? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you like that. Jesus said, feed my sheep. I tell you the truth, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him, follow me. Now, of course, we don't Peter was killed, he was crucified, his arm got stretched out. People led him up there where he didn't want to go, stretched out his arms and crucified him upside down.
Yeah.
Before he was crucified, they crucified his wife, fed his kids to the lions, because he refused to deny Jesus and bow down to the emperor of England. That's what happened to him. It's interesting that after all that Peter did to Jesus, betrayed him, abandoned him, went fishing, didn't believe him, didn't follow him. The first thing Peter does, or Jesus does when he comes back, feeds him some barbecue. Jesus didn't ask Peter for special missions or contribution. He didn't demand that Peter show up on time to all the meetings of the body. He didn't ask him that. He didn't ask Peter, hey Peter, how's your quiet time this week? He didn't ask Peter, how's your D time? Have you taken these sisters on a kingdom date? Oh wait, never mind, you're married. He didn't ask him any of that stuff, right? He didn't ask Peter for an apology for hurting his feelings and abandoning him and betraying him into the hands of sin and leaving him all alone when he needed him the most. He didn't ask him for an apology. Peter did not, or Jesus did not demand that Peter repent. That's not what he did. He didn't ask him for that. He asked Peter if he truly loved him. That's what he asked him. Where does love come from? Love comes from the heart. Love comes from the heart. Jesus said in John 15, verse 9, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you obey my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have obeyed my Father's commands and remain in his love.
Yeah.
But what is the outcome of love? Taking care of each other. That's the outcome of love. It's not some emotion or some feeling. It's a way of life.
Right.
It comes from an emotion or feeling. It's an action. Jesus gave Peter some barbecued fish. He asked him for his heart. That's what he did. He asked him for his heart. You see, Jesus knew that if Peter would give him all of his heart, all the other stuff would follow. Maybe he had no problem with contribution and special missions. And he didn't have to ask, have you been sharing your faith a bunch or anything like that. He didn't ask him about any of that stuff. He knew that if all of his heart, he gave it to him. He knew that repentance would come. He knew that contribution would be no big deal. He knew that dying on a cross, crucified upside down, if he just gave him all of his heart, he'd be willing to even do that. Many years later, at the end of his life, Peter wrote, above all, love each other deeply. For love covers over a multitude of sins. Peter knew from experience when Jesus forgave him his heart for what he'd done to Jesus. You know that Jesus forgives us from his heart for what we've done to him. He forgives us from his heart. He expects us to do it for others as well.
Yeah.
Jesus said in Matthew 18 that God will punish us if we don't forgive each other from the heart. He expects us to do it too. Now, when I wake up in the morning and when I look in the mirror, I see something. When I look all across this congregation, I see something. I see a bunch of people that are messed up with serious character issues. Serious, I mean they're serious character issues. Serious heart problems. I see, that's what I see. But you know what else I see? I see people that love.
Amen. Come on,
I see people that love like a family. That's what I see. You know, and that's what God wants us to be. We, as disciples, have got to be the most loving, forgiving, compassionate, merciful family that's ever walked the earth. That's what we need to be for this lost, dying, dark world around us. We need to be that loving family. That's the only way that we can overcome the world like Jesus did. There's a guy named O.N.D. Young. He was an industrialist back in the day. And he says, what I am concerned about in this fast-moving world, in a time of crisis, both in foreign and domestic affairs, is not so much a program as a spirit of approach when we deal with things. Not so much a mind as I am a heart. A program lives today and dies tomorrow. A mind, if it may be open, may change with each day. But the spirit and the heart are as unchanging as the tides. No, knowledge comes from our mind, our wisdom and all that. It's our method of approach, though, that matters. Our heart that matters. Because they are like tides. They gradually change over a period of time. Our character changes. They change gradually over time. Now, if we radically change our mind by changing our heart, the way we've been programmed by Satan, the way we've been programmed by society, the way we've been programmed from our parents, from our grandparents, and their grandparents, and their grandparents after generations of corruption and sin, if we change that today, we can change the world tomorrow.
Yeah, but
Then we've got to radically change our programming. Same as Peter, God is asking of us today. Enjoy the barbecue fish and sacrifice your heart to God. Amen. Your desires and your plans for your life, give it all to God. Give all of your heart to God. In closing, if our heart is in shape and in the right place, healthy, and in the palm of God's hand, then we can change society. And the murders,